Another attempt by some to mock Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has appeared to backfire once again. Multiple social media users on the right shared a years-old video of her at Boston University with other students recreating dances from John Hughes movies, with Ocasio-Cortez taking Ali Sheedy's part in The Breakfast Club. They wrongly stated that she was in high school, and instead of embarrassing her, the video went viral with people putting the dance moves to other songs. It's not just this. A brief search of conservative news sites finds dozens of articles criticizing the 29-year-old Democratic socialist. Whether it was for borrowing a $3,000 outfit for a photo shoot or the income level and property values in the town she grew up in, while wrongly claiming that she went to an Ivy League school instead of the public university she attended, or attacking her for saying she was having trouble getting approved for a D.C. apartment while unemployed. AOC, as she is sometimes called, tweeted in November that Republicans should listen to her arguments instead of drooling over every minute of footage of me in slow-mo, a comment which Breitbart then turned into a headline. Ruth Marcus, what do you make of this? I'm of two minds about it, but it is a great example of how the right sometimes can focus on someone on the left and overstep to a point where it gets ugly, undermining, and quite frankly doesn't help either side.
Well, it's fascinating because she's gotten attention both from Democrats and Republicans and has really captured the public imagination with her youth, with her outspokenness. I think that from the point of view of the right, they've kind of wrung the last political benefit they can get probably out of Nancy Pelosi. It was getting a little stale to be running against her. You're not going to be able to run against her in 2020 because there's going to be a Democratic nominee. So I think to some extent Republicans are looking for the new Pelosi, the new sort of, instead of San Francisco liberal, you could get New York socialist or whatever they want to turn her into. And be able to sort of use her as the new whipping person, if you will, to explain how crazy dangerous Democrats are going to be. I think it's really, that's going to, obviously the instinct, it's obviously, if it hasn't worked for them in the past, at least it's helped with fundraising and things like that. I think it's really important. And look, jumping on that video was ridiculous. I wish I had been able to dance on rooftops like that in college. But it's really important for her and for others. We had that really unfortunate mother video earlier, just not to do anything that gives Republicans and the right any ammunition to use against them.
Don't give them the ammunition. Yeah. Mike Barnicle.
Be careful.
You know, Gene, this is kind of an age-old thing, the thing about AOC. I mean, we've seen it play out a million times, and it's not just now conservatives or right-wing stuff or Breitbart. It's conservative Democrats and everything looking at her askance. And it seems to me it's just the age-old recipe of what happens when fear marries envy. This is what you get, an attack on a woman like this.
I guess that's what it is, Mike. I've been trying to understand it. I mean, they have elevated
She's a
the
star.
right. Really, the right has elevated her to the point where we now call her AOC, right? I mean, she has this initials, the shortened initials name, which you don't get unless you're really a major figure, and so she's become a major figure in our politics for the right. But she's a freshman congresswoman who has zero power right now, except as a something of a spokesman for the, I guess, for the freshman class or part of the freshman class for this new sort of wave of activists who've come into the Democratic Party, but they're all over the map. They're not all Democratic socialists. She just has a lot of sparkle. She has a lot of that political X factor that makes people pay attention, and the right just seems to have almost lost its mind about her.
Well, I would push back a little bit on that to say that the right didn't create Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She defeated the fourth-ranking House Democrat, and she became a fixture in the political space overnight. She appeared on, including this show, many other programs, and it wasn't the right that made her the phenomenon she is today. They responded to that. And I would agree that we should listen to what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, and not what she wears or what she did in high school is nonsensical. And what she says are things like Gaza is occupied by Israel, which is false. She says is we should expropriate unlent property in New York City in order to alleviate homelessness, which was a proposition offered literally by Frederick Engels in the 19th century. She says that we can invoke the New Deal just about every time to pay for programs upwards of $2 trillion, for example, and that the Fed will simply lend credit to that effect. What she says is quite enough to discredit what I believe are ideas that are poorly founded, and we can leave what she wears in the halls of Congress.
No, it brings up a good point. There's also a lesson, Joe touched on this earlier. The right has to understand that we're going to elect a president someday that is going to have footage doing a lot worse than that. Today's generation,
You already have it.
It's built. Yeah, it's built into that. And you know, for them to not understand, it's one thing if you're cursing out that a girl dancing in college is a problem. They are going to have to figure out that this is a world that's grown up with this thing, and every single human being is going to have a history of stuff that is what it is.
Yeah. Well, Ruth Marcus, Eugene Robinson, thank you both for being on this morning. Up next, the new cover story of The Economist is looking at season 2 of The Trump Show as the president begins to face the consequences of his own policies and behavior. Morning Joe is back in a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.